here to bring a message of diversity to us, something that, I mean, as musicians, you know that if everybody sings the same note, there's no harmony, right? As artists, you want more than one color on your palette. As weavers, you need more than one color of thread to make a beautiful tapestry. And that's the whole idea behind diversity. And to help us achieve that together, let's really embrace the message that Christopher has brought us today. Help me welcome Christopher. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for inviting me to speak to you here today. I bring you greetings from the rest of us down in Venice and Venice Theatre. We say, come on down. Y'all look like a friendly bunch. We'd love to have you down there. Come visit us. Come on down. So how many of you have ever been to Venice? Venice Theatre or Venice? Okay. So you know Venice is a quiet little town. And Venice Theatre is on the island of Venice. And Venice Theatre was founded in 1950. So 67 years later, Venice Theatre has grown now to be the second largest community theater in the nation. And it's grown a lot, and it's grown a lot for the community, for the town, and nationally. And since 2011, I've been there as Director of Diversity. And I also must tell you, my mother would make sure I informed you that the reason I have not shaved is because I'm growing a beard for a show. Because she would make sure that I told you that. So I'm telling you that. And as I told Mr. Jarvis, at any moment, if there's questions, if you want to raise your hand, I'll write them down. If I don't have an answer for you now, I'll make up one or give you one. But very informal. That's me. So let's talk diversity. Let's talk diversity here in this congregation, diversity in our counties and our country, and let's open it up to the world. So yes, I am here to talk with you in context of my job at Venice Theatre, but you know, and as you can see in your bulletin, that I'm here to ask questions. I'm here to ask who lives, who dies, who tells your story, and more relatively, who tells our story. I took this phrase from my newest favorite musical, Hamilton. It's a show based on the life of Alexander Hamilton and many of our founding fathers. It's one of the song lyrics, and I thought I was being really clever. I thought of this great title for this message, but as I was doing research, I realized a lot of other people had this great idea too. And I read some of their ideas, and I read some of their messages, and it's not the one I'm here to tell you. So that's not it. But it's a question that we need to be asking ourselves in this world, and particularly as we talk about diversity. It comes from the final song in the mega musical. The lyrics are, "Let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?" It's an echo of a previous song in the first act of the musical called "History Has Its Eye on You." And yes, history does have its eye on us. Who tells the story that we want to tell? It's an interesting thing. And one of the many interesting things among the multi-million and millions of dollars this show has made is that this show about the founding fathers of our country is 99% African American, Black, and Latin American, Latin cast members. So it's so interesting that we talk about George Washington, and we talk about how George Washington is going off to war and going back to Martha. But George Washington's a black man. Aaron Burr is a black man. Alexander Hamilton is a Latin man. It's very interesting, these stories, and how it flows. It's such an interesting thing. Before we go into that, though, who am I? I'm Christopher Geddie. I left New York in the September of 2010, and I came to this place called Venice that I'd never heard of, that I did not know. And that I was like, all right, I'm coming for 6 weeks to do this show called Ragtime. If you don't know about the novel Ragtime or the musical, the 1981 movie came out as well. Ragtime is an award-winning 1998 musical regarding the melting pot of America and New York at the turn of the century. It involves a triangle of black and white and immigrants trying to find their place in the growing, changing country. There's 50 people on stage singing lots of incredible music, so if you ever get a chance to see Ragtime, go see it. But Venice Theatre produced it in 2010 for the first time with much success, to sold-out houses, and thanks to the demand from the audience, we did it again in 2016 to an even greater success. And I often say that Ragtime in many ways echoed my moving to Venice, because it was a show that always held a special place in my life, but it was these strange people coming to a strange place and making a life. One of the final songs in Ragtime holds special meaning to me, and one that I will always use in any message that I give to my nephews, to my nieces, to my students as I'm teaching. Make them hear you. Those lyrics are, go out and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Your sword can be a sermon or the power of the pen. Teach every child to raise his voice. And then, my brothers, then, will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. So, after singing that song at the end of a show for 6 weeks, the executive director of Venice Theatre, Murray Chase, and I started talking about what was going on in Venice, what was going on in Florida, what was going on in our country. Why did we not have any diversity? Because I came from New York. So coming to Venice, it was a very interesting thing to me. It was I didn't know where I was. So we had the need for more diversity in our region, in Sarasota County, in Manatee County, in Venice, and particularly at Venice Theatre. So the ball started rolling, and I opened my big mouth and said, we got to do something. So I got the job. And that is how I came to be Director of Diversity at Venice Theatre. So my first job at that moment was to figure out, what does a Director of Diversity do? I don't know. So there was no standard out there. So I started researching, what does a Director of Diversity do? Google, our friend. So according to what I found, a Director of Diversity involves human resources. We make sure that the employees are politically correct in their work environment. We make sure that X amount of employees of a certain demographic were hired, and we make sure that everybody's holidays are covered and religious observations. So when you get to know me, you know that's a laugh. It ain't me. That ain't what I do. So I said, let's throw that definition out. So let's go back to the dictionary. What does diversity mean? It says, diversity is the condition of having or being composed of differing elements, variety, especially the inclusion of different types of people as people of different races or cultures in a group or organization. Okay. An instance of being composed of differing elements or qualities. An instance of being diverse, a diversity of opinion. Okay. So that was a start. So that gave me a bit of a clue. Here's what we're going to do. So then at Venice, we know we had to have some specific goals, and goals that I think we all need to look to. There were 4 goals. Our first goal was to include more multi-ethnic productions, because that would broaden our clientele and volunteer base. Secondly, diversify your outreach programming and service areas. Okay. Thirdly, expand your audience to include more people of a different ethnic, economic, and cultural background. Fourth, diversify your education, programming, and clientele. So when my job was first announced in 2011, people asked why. Why do you want to do this? And there was not too many, but there were some calls to Venice to say, we don't need any more black people in Venice. They called, they said it, and to this day, it doesn't happen as often anymore. But yes, those calls come in, and I'm ready for them. I like them, because I like to deal with those. It's fun. But I'm here to speak on what we, the people, can and should do. On a purely business level, we all have to change. And that's just business. It's not about the good feels we get. That's purely business as a survival tactic. We as a human race have to change to be more inclusive and to love one another. Why should we not want to engage the entire community? People like to throw around the story that, oh, we're all equal now. And it's just that, a story. Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, who is featured in the musical Hamilton as a rapping, big hair, dreadlocked, purple satin-wearing man. Thomas Jefferson was pompous, and that's how it is portrayed in the musical to relate to our current population. He said, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator within certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The fact is, Thomas Jefferson did not mean everybody in the room. When those words were written, it would have actually been impossible and illegal for me to even read them. But we've evolved, we changed. We're growing up. Our country is growing up. So, some of you are now getting what? Okay, this diversity thing. This is what he's talking about. Here's what we're going to do. But I wasn't hired to just diversify and bring in black people, because that's not what diversity is. It's bringing all people, all races, all cultures, all age groups. I'm involved now in a little bit of every aspect of the theater, but primarily I work with the education and outreach departments. But so it's that thing of we're all growing, we're all changing, and I'm always looking to bring in something different. Because if we don't change, we shrivel up like a raisin in the sun. So as I started working on how to figure out this math puzzle that I was going to do, because in Venice, when I came to Venice and I looked at things, the percentages were startling. Let me give them to you. So from 2000 to 2010, there was a doubling of the Hispanic population in Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte counties. Now, this was when I came in 2010. I'm going to get to the latest in a second. Deaths outweighed births in Sarasota and Charlotte counties, and it still does. Northport, South Sarasota County, had a 152% spike in population. from 2000 to 2010. It dropped in again in the recession, but now it's growing again. It is the fastest growing city in a 2-county region by 3.3%. And a lot of that is because people cannot afford to live in Sarasota counties. We are pricing people out. And we are forcing everyone to move south, which is great for us at Venice. We love it. So Anna Maria Island is 3.3% growth. 3.2, sorry. Sarasota is 2.5% growth. Bradenton is 2.3, and Venice is 1.3. So we see this rise of population all over the place that's not just a little drop in the bucket. Those numbers seem small, but it's really not. So now back to when I got to Venice. Here are the statistics. It was 95% white, 2.6% Hispanic, 0.7% Asian, 0.6% black, and everyone else was listed as other. They changed a bit. Now we're 97% white in Venice, 1.1% Asian, 0.7% black, 8.8% mixed, and only 0.3% other. So the numbers are going up. And at one point, us black folks in Venice had gotten to be a 1%, but I think 4 people left, so we're back down to 0.7. But we're working on it. I use the word black instead of African American and white instead of Caucasian American. It's my choice. So some people like African American. I feel that I did not immigrate to this country. So I don't need to put a qualifier. And that's just me. That's me. So going back to those numbers of black people. And not just black people. Those numbers of people of any other race other than the white people I saw in Venice. Until the year 2012, I could count the number of people of any other color I'd seen on 2 hands. That day when I could say, I can't use my hands to count these people anymore. This is great. But to this day, when I see a person of race similar to mine, or someone that looks sort of like me, it's that, wow, hello, how are you? What's going on? What are you doing here? And welcome. Like, we have to tell this story, and that's what I want us all to remember. There's nothing wrong with saying hello to people. There's nothing wrong. So, at Venice, we decided that was what we were going to do. We are not going to be those people who say nothing and do nothing. We have to actively jump on the bandwagon, as we all do. You have to get there. Do it. Don't wait. Do it. So I could see a change when we adopted this attitude of, let's do something about it. Bring somebody new. Bring somebody new with you to church on Sunday. Bring someone new to the Manatee Performing Arts Center. Bring someone new to the opera, to the Van Wezel. Bring someone new. And we have to figure out a way to get our preteens, teens, millennials, adults off their iPads, off their devices, the gaming systems. We have to get them to look at each other, to speak to each other, to connect. We need those students and their parents to look up from the devices. We need that bullied child to come to a place where he can feel welcomed. We need that gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered person who feels alone to know that there is a safe place. We need those people of Latin descent to know they're welcomed. And yeah, we do need those black people to come into a community and feel that they can come into a building. We have to extend the invitation. Barbara Jordan said, The arts are our response to our individuality and our nature, and to help share our identity. The arts are not a frill and should not be treated as such. They have potential to become the driving force for healing division and divisiveness. For me, theater is a sanctuary, just like this. Theater is a place where I can be me, feel free to express myself, to grow without judgment. Everybody needs that. In a community, we all need a safe place. And it goes to one of those things that I say, and you'll hear me say the rest of this, the open door syndrome. That's what we call it. And then us nonprofits and our community organizations, we say, well, we open the door, why aren't you walking through it? That is the open door syndrome. Now, what story are we telling? And what story are we giving to people when we say that? So let me explain, just like these front doors. Let's say I come to the front door, open it up, see nobody I recognize, see no faces that look like mine, nobody saying, welcome, come in. To be inclusive and diverse, we have to step outside that door and welcome people in. You have a greeter at the door. Do you know how many people don't? So many people don't greet people. We've lost that. We've lost the ability to say hello. So if everybody looks, acts, and has the same beliefs as us, that's not being diverse or inclusive. And I'm pretty honest, so I'm going to tell you. Sarasota and Manatee counties don't always want to be diverse. We say it, but we don't mean it. We do not mean it. And we keep paying all this lip service, and like Sarasota County, because that's where I live, we keep paying people to come in to do a survey of homelessness and to see what happens and what we should do. Well, when they give the reports, we say, oh, no, we don't want to do that. If we keep bringing people in, and if we keep electing officials that don't care, we are not helping. When I was little, we used to wear these little bracelets and T-shirts that say WWJD. What would Jesus do? In every religion, the leaders have said, love one another. That's it. Until we decide to change, and it is all of us. It's not, oh, the ethereal, those people, they need to change. No, they got to change. They're not doing it right. No, it's us. We have to change. And now that you've gotten to know me a few minutes, you know I tried to be that eloquent and politically correct person when I came to Florida. It doesn't work. That's not me. And that does not get the message. Because then we go, oh, this is just like that person I've seen on TV. No. So one of the biggest issues we in this country have to face is we don't tackle things head on. We dance around and skate around the issues and make them pretty. To celebrate the diversity of America, we have to recognize it. We have to. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send those homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Those lines are from the New Colossus, Emma Lazarus, on the base of the Statue of Liberty. Do we mean that anymore? Are we, America, actually telling that story? What story are we telling? We can't celebrate the diversity of this country until we actually admit we have a problem with race. Racism is real. It's a real thing. We can't say it doesn't exist. These racially motivated events that are happening in our country, they're not new. It's so shocking to see people And Venice is like, oh my, this is a shame. We've never. What history did you all learn? It hasn't changed. But we can start to say to those people, it hasn't changed. What are we going to do to change it? Because I used to sit and listen, but oh, and just sit there like, you really think? No, I don't do that anymore. I stop them immediately and say, no, here's what happened. Know your history. If you don't know it, let's find out. We'll find out together. And we can do that because that dialogue with each other, that's the way this works. And things have gotten so much better in Venice. It's so much better and so much better all over because people are free to talk to each other. And some of us actually are talking to each other. We have to and tell the truth. As I said, we have to go and tell the truth. That's the thing. When people say to me that Venice Theatre is a welcoming place, I say, yeah, it is, but we have to get outside of our own box. Find the real stories. Find those stories. Find out what people want to hear. Find out what other people want. It's not necessarily what we want, other people. So I mentioned the open door syndrome. We can't live by the open door syndrome. We have to go outside. It's the same for this congregation, for Venice Theatre, the same for the places you work, the same for your house. We as members of the human race cannot sit by and let this go on. We are here today to start what I hope will be a conversation and discussion about diversity and the legacy we leave behind. So let's do it. It's a simple process. I've already said it's the power of hello. Take the time to say hello. A simple hello goes a long way. If we simply say hello and are truly grateful to see the person and talk to the person and get to know the person, it opens a line of communication. I feel more included in life when someone says hello. It's that, just a hello. Look at me and say hello. We can't continue the assumption that for a church or a theater or any place that it's a great benefit. It's not. For those people who have never been to a church, never been to a sanctuary, their life was fine before they ever heard of us. We have to make them feel welcome. We have to make them understand the benefits. We have to send out the invitation. We have to send it out. It can't be an email. It can't be a fax. It can't be a postcard. We have to send that invitation. And granted, a reminder, follow-up email is always welcomed. But we have to use our legs to get to people. We have to go out and meet people. And that's part of what my job has been. And the statistics say you can't quantify how a diversity program is going to work for 10 years. And that's what our board at the theater, I gave them that from day one. I said, you will not be able to quantify the job that I'm doing for 10 years. And here's the statistics to base it up, so you do keep giving me a paycheck. But you have to plant the seeds for the future. You have to plant them. And you do. You'll see an increase. And anecdotally, you'll see an increase. It's not that you'll be able to count, oh, we got more, got more, got more. But you feel it. It's a feeling. We have to start that global effort today. And as my mother always says, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. There is no other way about it. So until we do something, we're just as bad. So what's the first step? The first step, research. Research, research, and more research. As I said earlier, it's about that thing of find the statistics. Find out who it is. Find out the community leaders. Find out what communities need And that's the interesting thing, to find out what a community needs. What they actually need. Not what you want them to have, but what they need. And then how do we bridge that gap? How do we bridge that gap between what we have to offer and what a community needs? One way, talk. Talk to them. Talk real. Speak real. So I was going back and forth between Hamilton and my favorite Dr. Martin Luther King sermon to talk about what to tell you today, to summarize. And his most famous speech that I love is the drum major instinct. So history has its eye on us. And that's the thing I want to say and talk to you and help you think about. It has a correlation. February 2nd, 1968. 2 months to the day before he was assassinated, Martin Luther King talked about the exact same things we're here to talk about. Diversity, building bridges, building community. And what story do we want to leave behind? He says, it's a desire to be out front, a desire to lead the parade, a desire to be first. And it's something that runs the whole gamut of life. He goes on to say, we like to do something good. And you know, we all like to be praised for it. Now, if you don't believe that, you just go on living life, and you will discover very soon that you like to be praised. Everybody likes it. It's a matter of fact. So, this is our challenge. We have to be drum majors. We're drum majors. And further in this speech, Dr. King goes on to talk about churches. Because he was a famous pastor. So he knew a little bit about churches. So he says, Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America. And it still is. We haven't changed that. So any church that violates the whosoever will let him come doctrine is a dead, cold church and nothing but a little social club with a thin veneer of religiosity. That's what he said. Our job is to stomp that out. Stomp it out. Because we're the drum majors now, we can include, we can welcome, we can work toward overcoming those prejudices that we all still have and may have concerning race, gender, sexual orientation, immigrants, and countless other things. Open the dialogue. Continue the conversation we're having. Open the door. What's stopping us from opening this door? Fear. And habit. And the thing that I discovered, all of that comes from a thing of trust. We don't trust each other. And why should we? Because any community that has traditionally been shunned from another community, why would they feel welcome to come in a door? Say hello. Start building that trust. Martin Luther King also says faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. Some more of his famous words that I love. When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up to that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last. So we have to show a commitment. What's that commitment? We have to change what we're doing. Take the leap. Take it. Jump. And it's the thing I say, you don't know what's going to happen. You're not going to fall. Because we believe other things. We're never going to fall. We're going to be caught. But take the leap. So we've identified our potential audiences. And so that's things we need to do. We need to know what to get to people. How do we get to people? And the thing that was so interesting to me, the most important thing, as I was trying to get people, come in the door, come to see us. People said, I can't afford that. I can feed a family of 4 for $30. come into the theater cost 20-something at that time. So what are we going to do? How are we going to help that? How are we going to remove those obstacles? So my thing to you to say is figure it out. Talk to people. Help them. And if you just talk to people, you'll get there. I'm going to close with this. At the end of Martin Luther King's Drum Major Instinct, he says, if any of you are around when I have to meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. And if you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long and not to wonder what I want them to say. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize, and that's not important. Tell them not to mention that I have 300 or 400 words, or other awards. That's not important. I'd like somebody to mention that Martin Luther King tried to give his life serving others. Martin Luther King tried to love somebody. I want you to say that day that I tried to be right on the war question. I want you to be able to say that I did try to feed the hungry. I want you to be able to say that I did try to clothe those who were naked. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in need in prison. I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. Say that I was a drum major. Say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. And all of those other shallow things will not matter. I won't have the fine and luxurious things to leave behind, but I just want to leave a committed life behind. And that's all I want to say. And that's all I want to say to you. Keep the door open. Talk to people. Say hello. Help them build their stories. Help you build your stories. Who lives? Who dies? Who tells our story? Yeah.